Gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you with a delight in our heart that we can call you Father. Your word describes you in many ways as the great and mighty one. But one of the most interesting is where the scripture says, God is light, and in him is no darkness at all. Tonight we're here because we know that you will shine light in the dark places and uncover wickedness. Tonight, this is not just political persuasion, though those things are important. We're a battle between good and evil. We ask for good success. We ask for your direction. And according to the prophet Isaiah, chapter 44, we ask it all in the name of the Lord our Redeemer. And that name is holy forever and ever, the living Christ. Amen. Amen. I was going to incorporate this in the prayer, but I thought it'd be better just to read it so we really understand the other side as we close, as I finish the prayer. The scripture in the book of Proverbs describes our enemies. A worthless person, a wicked man, walks with a perverse mouth, winks with his eyes, shuffles his feet, he points with his fingers, perversity is in his heart. Gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you with a delight in our heart that we can call you Father. Your word describes you in many ways as the great and mighty one. But one of the most interesting is where the scripture says, God is light, and in him is no darkness at all. Tonight we're here because we know that you will shine light in the dark places and uncover wickedness. Tonight, this is not just political persuasion, though those things are important. We're a battle between good and evil. We ask for good success. We ask for your direction. And according to the prophet Isaiah, chapter 44, we ask it all in the name of the Lord our Redeemer. And that name is holy forever and ever, the living Christ. Amen. Amen. I was going to incorporate this in the prayer, but I thought it'd be better just to read it so we really understand the other side as we close, as I finish the prayer. The scripture in the book of Proverbs describes our enemies. A worthless person, a wicked man, walks with a perverse mouth, winks with his eyes, shuffles his feet, he points with his fingers, perversity is in his heart. He devises evil continually, he sows discord, therefore his calamity shall come suddenly. Suddenly he shall be broken without remedy. Amen.
Thank you, Frank. Randall Jordan, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Hand over your heart. Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm honored to ask Lauren McCoy to sing the Star Spangled Banner.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watch were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, the land of the free and the home of the
If you weren't feeling patriotic before that, thank you all for coming. You know, I work on the Bruce Jones campaign for District 2 Supervisor. I'm actually District 3 Chair on the Central Committee, but it's so important that we have a man of integrity. This is a crucial point for our county because if Gibson stays in office, it tilts to the progressive liberal left. And that means the Agenda 21 or 2030, whatever you want to call it, goes full steam ahead in our county, and we can't have it. I don't know of any other candidate who has ever had the courage to call it out and even have something like this and endorse having some kind of event like this to be able to call out what's going on and expose the corruption. It is with honor that I invite Dr. Bruce to say a few words.
Thank you for coming tonight. This is a big event. I want you to listen carefully, make up your own minds when you hear the information presented tonight. I am the honest anti-corruption candidate that you want. Thank you for coming. I want to call out Cindy. Cindy put all of this together. Many of you helped, and everybody's help is appreciated. But as a member of my kitchen cabinet, she has done an incredible job putting this together. Let's give her a hand.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. I would like to acknowledge people in our audience, Supervisor Debbie Arnold, former Congresswoman Andrea Seastrand, former Mayor in Atascadero, Ray Johnson, and former Mayor of Grover Beach, Debbie Peterson. Have I forgot anybody?
Jerry Lenthal.
District 3.
Jerry Lenthal,
District 3.
Supervisor.
former supervisor.
District 3.
And does Jerry do a great barbecue or what? We have a number of candidates here in the room. And what I'd like to do is have all of you come to the front. Please walk by. I'm going to give you this mic and tell everyone who you are and what position you are running for, and not a speech, just who you are and what position you're running for. And thank you very much. Just come on up. Doesn't this warm your heart to see how many people we have running?
Good evening. My name is Frank Triggs. I am on the school board in Paso Robles, and I'm running for re-election on the school board. I am and will continue to be a voice of sanity and clarity, and one of the things that somehow has come to be an issue is teaching educated people there's a difference between boys and girls.
Good evening, thank you. My name is Carla Wixom, and I am running for mayor of Morro Bay.
And I'm Dan Hathaway. I'm running for the school board in Atascadero.
My name is Lauren McCoy, and I'm running for Paso Robles Joint Unified School District at-large position.
I am Rebecca Koznek, and I am running for Atascadero also.
I'm Jennifer Grininger. I'm running for school board in Templeton Unified School District.
Hi, I'm Jeffrey Specht, and I am in the belly of the beast, running for the mayor of San Luis Obispo. I am a big fan and a strong supporter of Dr. Jones. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Scott Staten. I'm running for, well, the last one, third one here, actually, for Atascadero Unified School Board. Thank you.
My name is Peter Byrne. I'm running for the Paso Robles Joint Union School District in District 1. And I have a bad habit of telling people what I think. And a lot of times they don't like that. Politicians don't do that, but that's just the way it is. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I'm going to introduce our first speaker. Many of you are familiar with her name and her online newspaper. I guess you don't call it a newspaper, but it's called Calco's News. And I'm honored to call her friend. She is the bravest person I know in San Luis Obispo County. Karen Velie.
One more person just told me to speak slowly. Thank you very much for inviting me here today. My name is Karen Velie. I am the owner and the primary investigative reporter for Calco's News. Now, I want to be clear. I am not here to promote Republicans or Democrats. I am agnostic. At Calco's News, and unlike the Tribune, we do not endorse candidates. We do, however, report on fraud and corruption. In 2008, I co-founded Calco's News with a best-selling author and a seasoned reporter, Daniel Blackburn, for one compelling reason: to report the truth in this county. Shortly after we started, George Ramos, a three-time Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter from the LA Times, because of our mission statement, volunteered to serve as our editor. It was clear to our founding fathers, as it is now, that a true democracy cannot exist without factual reporting. While others advocate, we do not. Okay. For example, and the reason Calco's News is here today, in 2006, I worked at the Slow New Times. Some of you may remember. And at the time, I had discovered a multi-million-dollar fraud. It had to do with former Man of the Year in Atascadero. Is it hard to hear me?
Yes, it speaks through.
Is that better? Okay. Okay. At the time, I had been working on a story about Kelly Gerhardt. And it was supposed to run a couple days from when it was supposed to run. I was called into the office by my editor. And he set me down and he said, "Don't you want people to like you? Wouldn't you rather write nice stories?" And then he informed me that he had met Tom O'Malley. And Tom O'Malley at the time was the mayor of the Atascadero. Tom told him Kelly Gerhardt was a great guy, and I was hurting a good man. The editor cut my story, and I wrote a letter of resignation and left the New Times. I was not there to be liked. I was there to report the truth. Now, ultimately, through Cal Coast News, I was instrumental in the arrests and prosecutions of Kelly Gerhardt, James Miller, Josh Aguda, and Karen Guth. This was a group of people who defrauded primarily seniors in our community out of hundreds of millions of dollars. Many of these people never recovered from this fraud. I gladly exchanged likability to stop the fraud. Now then in 2009, Cal Coast News broke the story that David Edge, who was the county administrator, was on paid administrative leave because of sexual misconduct. Remember this, sexual misconduct is a common term in this county with public officials. Now, shortly after I discovered this, I called a county staffer and I wanted to ask some questions. And I was told that the new interim county administrator had ordered staff not to talk to anyone from Cal Coast News. I was then informed that Bruce Gibson had appointed himself interim county administrator. He was also working at the same time as chair of the Board of Supervisors. So I called county council and I gave a government code and I said, "Isn't it against the law for a supervisor to direct staff?" He called me back about 2 hours later and said he had Gibson step down. Now, this was one of the first examples of Gibson running the county his way in violation of the law. Now, shortly afterwards, he retaliated. I was taken off the county press release list. It took me years to get back on. And in fact, Debbie Arnold, she was the reason. When she was first elected, I went to her and I asked her for help. And she had me put back on the county list. But this was typical of Bruce Gibson and Adam Hill to target reporters that wrote things that they did not like. Now, on to the politically conjoined twins, Adam Hill and Bruce Gibson, and how insidious corruption and bad behavior continues with Bruce Gibson at the helm. After Adam Hill joined the Board of Supervisors, he quickly began dating Dee Torrance. She was a capsule employee who was accused of pilfering money from the homeless. I didn't know they were dating at the time. I had no idea, but I would have written the stories anyway. My reporting led to her demotion. Hill then threatened me, both directly and indirectly. He said, "If you do not agree to stop writing anything negative about myself or my girlfriend, I will destroy you. I will destroy Cal Coast News." Hill's threats only increased my resolve. It was clear both Adam Hill and Bruce Gibson do not like transparency. They do not believe in freedom of the press, which is very common in people who have something to hide. Hill then went after Cal Coast News advertisers, affiliates, my family, and he used his position on the Board of Supervisors to harm us. He approached a photographer I had working at the time, and he offered him some work on his campaign. And then he offered him work on Gibson's campaign. And then he offered him money from the county and jobs through the county. Then he told him, you need to cut all ties with Cal Coast News and Karen Velie, or we're going to cut all these jobs away from you. My photographer left. Then he went after my advertisers. And in about a 2-week period, I lost 2/3 of my advertisers. Several people stayed. Spencer Market stayed, King Venture stayed, and Cafe Roma stayed. But Hill wasn't done. About 6 months later, he went back to Cafe Roma, and he said, the county is having events here. Our staff come for lunch. We rent the banquet room. This is all going to end if you do not stop working with Cal Coast News and advertising. At the time, they quit because they had a significant amount of revenue coming in, and I'm not upset with them. Who I'm upset with is Adam Hill using his position to control the county. Now, for years, trolls affiliated with Adam Hill and Bruce Gibson attacked my family. They even referred to 2 of my daughters as whores. And after my 20-year-old daughter passed away, they referred to her as the spawn of Satan on social media. In the weeks that followed my daughter's death, it was related to a seizure, an epileptic seizure. There were dozens of social media posts claiming that I had murdered her, I was on the lam, and that I had refused to donate her organs. There are 2 people alive today because my daughter signed up to be an organ donor. Now, while Hill and several of his trolls harassed my family, and while they posted hundreds of online claims that I was a felon or that I had been in a mental health hospital, and these are lies, the Tribune was silent. However, when Hill posted something on social media claiming Cal Coast News was after his children, there were no articles about his children. The Tribune could have proven this was false, but instead they posted the false allegation. Our family dog was poisoned and killed. We had dead cats on our porch, and men followed my family around, my children at a park, my daughters to work. In 2013, someone placed a fake ticking time bomb under my porch in Avila. I moved. Then they went and vandalized my car. I moved again. Now, during this time, multiple businessmen in the community were coming to me. They were telling me that Adam Hill was hitting them up for money, that Adam Hill was ordering them to either pay him or they were going to have trouble getting things through the planning department or getting his vote. Then, in 2015, I found documents, evidence of fraud and possible bribes to Adam Hill. So I called Adam to ask some questions, sent some emails, and he, as typical about him, did not call me back, did not answer my questions. Instead, he went on social media and attacked me and said, Karen Velie's going to have a story. She has a grudge. This is personal. She hates me. I did not have a grudge against Adam Hill.
I do.
At that time, well, in what has become common practice, I report on issues such as the issues with Kelly Gerhardt. And the Tribune comes out on the other side. With Kelly Gerhardt, they actually wrote that I made it up and it wasn't true. Then when he was indicted, they never retracted. When I was writing about Dayspring and Adam Hill and the corruption, what did the Tribune do? They put him a story about Dayspring For those that don't know, Helios Dayspring is currently in prison, federal prison, for paying bribes to Adam Hill. So what the Tribune did was they wrote a fanciful story about what a great businessman Dayspring was and what a great farmer he was. This was another thing that they would do when I would write about Adam or Bruce or one of their favorite people. Now, there were other media figures who did not toe the line, like Dave Congleton and Dick Mason, two radio hosts in the area. They were also berated and defamed for years. Hill and his team attempted to get Congleton terminated. They were successful with going after Mason's employment at the time. Anyone who questioned Hill and Bruce's goals, such as water banking or promoting cannabis, were targets. Now, Gibson and Hill's team hijacked the Central Committee, the Democratic Central Committee. What they did is they replaced established Democrats with people with a financial interest in the cannabis industry. And I'll give you an example. There is a man named Nick Andre. Let me tell you about Nick Andre. He was the right-hand man for Helios Dayspring. He also ran Gibson and Hill's campaigns. And in the latest campaign, Gibson has paid him money again. This is a man who was made chair of the Democratic Central Committee, and he co-founded the Slow Progressives with Heidi Harmon. Now, after the FBI raided the county building and Hill's home as part of a wide-reaching corruption investigation, Hill committed suicide. Now, instead of condemning Hill's activities, the bribery, the corruption, Bruce Gibson denies there is corruption. Bruce Gibson says, Adam was my friend. He was a great man. He just had some mental health issues. Nothing has changed with the death of Adam Hill. The corruption and the bad behavior continues. Currently, Eric Gorham is somewhere. He's working on the campaign to elect Bruce Jones, Gibson's opponent. They went after his family and his job. Supporters of Adam Hill went to his boss and tried to get him fired. Then they called his ex. They didn't know it was his ex, but they claimed he was having an affair. This is what the bullies do. They go after your income, they go after your family, they go after your personal life. Now, while on the Board of Supervisors, Gibson appears to have skirted both state and local laws in putting on an addition, a 727 square foot addition to his home in Cayucas, a 208 square foot deck. He also then poured a walkway, partly encroaching on his next door neighbor's yard. All this was signed off by county staff. When I asked questions, they lost the file. Now, after I exposed the apparent wrongdoing, Gibson publicly threatened to sue me, though Gibson's attorney never mailed the veiled threat to Cal Coast News. In order to sue a media and to get money back, you have to mail them the threat within 21 days. But they did send it to the Tribune, which really shows that it was a political stunt. And let me tell you quickly who his attorney is. His attorney's wife is part owner of one of the pot shops. The attorney also worked for Dayspring. Now, in his public threat, Gibson said, I owed a judgment and that I was refusing to pay it, a statement he knew was libelous. Let me address the lawsuits. I owed a judgment. I sued the plaintiff for fraud on the court based on perjury. We settled. I owe nothing. Period, period, period. So, this is what I do, and I am not going to stop. I care about the truth, journalism, in our community. And as I've said before, I am not going to let a group of corrupt politicians, drug dealers, criminals, or any other son of a bitch stop me from telling the truth. Thank you very much for listening to me tonight.
And that's why I love Karen Velie. Karen is awesome, and she sets a standard for all of us to stand before corruption and stand up for truth. There's another wonderful woman who has integrity and courage to stand up for truth. Debbie Peterson served the city of Grover Beach for 13 years as a planning commissioner and commission chair, city council member, and as the first directly elected female mayor. Debbie's first book, The California Cake and Cookie Cookbook, sold in Border Books in Barnes & Noble. In addition to her public service, Debbie and her team have closed more than 500 win-win residential real estate transactions through her real estate company, Peterson Team Realty. Debbie's latest book, which we've all heard about, The Happiest Corruption, Sleaze, Lies, and Suicide in a California Beach town, is a #1 Amazon bestseller and a bestseller, I believe, in San Luis Obispo County. Brave enough to write that story and let the truth out. Another brave woman, Debbie Peterson.
I don't know what I was more excited about tonight, whether it was the linguiça, the Italian sausage, or the garlic bread, the Thousand Hills Ranch, or listening to Karen, and I know there's some great people coming after us, but thanks to all of you for making this possible tonight. And there are 3 questions that I get asked a lot about the happiest corruption, sleaze, lies, and suicide in a California beach town. The first one is, are you running for office? No, I've done that. The second one is, will there be a sequel? And I hadn't planned to do that, but I'm getting a lot of material. Number 3 was, did you write about Bruce Gibson in your book? Some, mostly in part 2, The Devil is in the District. And my focus tonight is on that particular devil in the district. My first question, when I was elected as a city council member in 2008, was, how do you get things done around here? I asked a former mayor, and he looked unsure, and he changed the subject. So I asked the city manager. He introduced me to the city department heads, and they were baffled too. But I was the one who was in for a surprise. I had served on the Planning Commission for 4 years. It was everything I could have wished for. Members were respectful of one another. They were respectful of the public. Together we found the best possible solutions, even when we couldn't agree. As the chair, I was committed to making sure that everyone understood the process, how meetings would run, when they could speak, for how long, and I explained what was coming up next in the meeting. Then I was elected to the city council. And even before I was sworn in, the oath to protect the city, the state, the country from the enemies within and without, I was approached by a former mayor. And he told me that there were serious problems at the sewer plant and asked me to get in there and clean it up. Supervisors and council members and mayors, as you know, sit on many boards that oversee the agencies that provide the public services that we pay for, sewer boards, water boards, tourism boards, etc. And so the supervisors and council members get to know one another. And of the 16 boards that I served on, 5 were so badly overseen that if they weren't corrupt, they were wide open for it. Board members didn't know their roles and responsibilities. They didn't ask questions. They relied on staff to tell them what to do rather than vice versa. The chief executives and attorneys were not reviewed. Pay raises were agreed in closed meetings. And tonight I'm going to talk about 2 of those agencies in depth, and I'll give a third one a passing mention. The first of these agencies is the Air Pollution Control District, which in government speak is referred to by its acronym, the APCD. In the happiest corruption, sleaze, lies, and suicide, the APCD fits best under the lies part of the title. I covered it in Chapter 5, the Air Pollution Troll District. When the Duke Power Station in Morro Bay shut down, the APCD's funding was shutting down with it, and they admitted to needing to find deep pockets. So they fined the emerging wine industry for their carbon footprint, and then they went after the richest California state park, the Dunes, accessed from Grover Beach. Playing to our environmental concerns about vehicles in natural settings and painting four-wheelers as rednecks from the Central Valley who were stirring up sand that was killing people downwind, they contrived a dust rule to fine the park. They did some studies, they ignored some inconsistencies, they skipped a few facts, and they never tested the composition of the deadly particulate. Old-timers downwind in Napomo, state parks personnel, and a local plume scientist were skeptical. Bruce Gibson and Air Pollution Control Officer Larry Allen disliked State Parks Deputy Director Daphne Green's positions on the dust rule. Observer Kevin Rice noted, in December 2011, Supervisor Gibson and APCD Officer Allen went to Sacramento to meet with the Secretary of Natural Resources who oversaw state parks, the Coastal Commission, and the California Geological Survey. 4 days later, Deputy Director Green, a high-energy and accomplished Democrat appointed by Gray Davis, lost her job. During the 9 years that I served as a council member and mayor, the only supervisor who never reached out to me was Bruce Gibson. But he reached out to my council. He and Supervisor Adam Hill didn't like it that I said the dust rule would not stand up in court. Just before the May and July 2013 APCD board meetings, Supervisors Gibson and Hill, although their actions and views were not sanctioned by their colleagues, and I know Debbie Arnold will tell you that's true, they tag-teamed my council. Gibson manned the phone and Hill the internet. They told my council that I was an embarrassment. Hill came to 3 council meetings that year, and he explained in public comment that he could continue to give the much-needed funds to city charities and city events if the council took me off the APCD board. The legal term for that is extortion, threatening to take something of value if someone does not comply with your wishes. I never checked the government code on membership of the APCD board because I thought the city and APCD attorneys would make sure that we complied. Neither ever corrected Gibson's and Hill's false assertion that my council could remove me from the APCD board. They had no authority to remove me. The mayor chooses the APCD representative by directive of state ordinance, not by meddling supervisors, extorted council members, or complicit attorneys. Gibson and Hill also thought that the respected state park superintendent, Phil Jenkins, was an embarrassment. So Hill emailed Jenkins' bosses and the Secretary of State using his District 3 supervisor email account to tell them so. The APCD board admonished him, and he promised not to send letters again without board consent. Then in July 2015, State Geological Survey's senior engineering geologist and hydrologist, Will Harris, had the audacity to speak during public comment at an APCD board meeting. By then, the California courts had already ruled that the dust rule permitting process was invalid. Harris was concerned that litigation would continue to divert the resources of the APCD. Harris suggested best management practices via a memorandum of understanding, an MOU. Harris called for collaboration and gave examples of air districts and state parks with MOUs. Supervisor Gibson was beyond embarrassed. Supervisor Hill, chairman of the APCD, responded to Harris's 3-minute comment by threatening, "Perhaps someone will talk to your bosses in Sacramento about your appearance here today." 3 days later, Supervisor Gibson did just that. It's a cause for alarm when 2 sitting supervisors use their position to censor the views of a public employee. Even more worrying is when they do so because the expert recommends a course of action they don't like. When someone goes to such extremes to stifle alternate views, it confirms the importance of hearing those views. Observer Rice made the following points at the next meeting. This is the second time on this board that Supervisor Gibson has used backroom politicking to cause a public servant to lose their job. Supervisors Gibson and Hill once again cut off honest debate and made a very personal attack on this science professional. Using political clout to terminate a person's livelihood places an extreme chill and fear upon any public employee involved in a public debate. Do we wish scientists to be afraid to express their professional views? Do we wish agency employees to bend to political pressures anytime they fear a single board member wields greater clout? It's outrageous that Supervisors Gibson and Hill have taken on this unilateral and extracurricular pursuit without board deliberation, public input, and majority Democratic direction of the board. The public has been locked out. If legislators may freely and individually interfere, what stops all 12 directors from individually interfering with every matter that comes to the table? And if that occurs, the discord and debate move from the public boardroom into the realm of behind-the-scenes power plays and lobbying. The public never sees and cannot participate in the debate of public issues. Supervisor Gibson goaded the APCD into indefensible legislation, and we have paid tens of millions of dollars funding losing legal battles. Meanwhile, the renowned Scripps Institute had a surprise for all of us. The particulate blowing downwind is only 14% sand, and it's not coming from the dunes. It's not killing anybody. It's 86% ground up crustaceans and salt blowing off the crests of the huge Pacific rollers. Still, the APCD and the Coastal Commission uphold the lie and persist in trying to shut down vehicles in the dunes. Moving on to more of the sleaze and lies in California beach towns, we come to the South Slough County Sanitation District, SSLOCSD. I'm going to call it the sewer district. This is the one the former mayor asked me to clean up, and he was right, it was a mess. And part of cleaning it up was finding someone outside the county to audit. None of the attorneys I knew and trusted could refer a good forensic auditor from out of county. But I had a friend who worked with Carl Knutson's daughter. Carl is the IRS and FBI investigator who tracked the Oliver North Noriega Nicaraguan arms and drugs deals and unraveled the money laundering of the Medellin Colombian drug cartels, and he took them down too. Carl was intrigued by what I had to tell him, and he asked to meet with me. At the end of our meeting, he told me that the web of corruption would be deeper and wider than I could possibly imagine, and that I probably couldn't fix it. After 3 years and constant pressure from over 100 members of the public, the sewer board agreed to have the past practices of the plant audited. The attorney retired when Knudsen rolled into town. Knudsen sent his report to the DA, who charged the administrator with multiple felony and misdemeanor counts of self-dealing. I mention the sewer district by way of introducing Carl Knudsen, who is also hugely important with the Integrated Waste Management Authority, the IWMA. Remember the word trash. When a large contingent of the public began to protest that there was corruption and hired Knudsen to investigate, Adam Hill, Bruce Gibson, and Grover Beach Mayor Jeff Lee, the president of the IWMA for 4 years, resisted an audit. The agency thwarted public records requests, and a large box of credit card receipts disappeared off to President Lee's house. The agency attorney, who also served as the APCD attorney, like the sewer attorney, retired when Knudsen came to town. As supervisors Adam Hill, Bruce Gibson, and Mayor Lee insisted there was no need for an audit, and in their words, that there was no impropriety, Knudsen found over $500,000 of charges on the IWMA credit card, many appearing to be personal. Knudsen had to sue the agency to get the public records he had been requesting for several years. He won the suit, and the IWMA had to pay his $55,000 legal costs and their own, and turn over the records. The court stipulated that he may advise the court if they did not. Still, they didn't turn over all the records. When Carl reported his findings to the DA, the agency bought a large shredder and started shredding. On August 5th, 2021, the DA charged the secretary with 9 counts of embezzlement and destruction of documents, but so many documents had been destroyed that the DA could make no other criminal charges. Carl Knudsen, the top government expert, corruption expert in the United States, whose presence alone causes agency attorneys to scurry, FBI agencies to gasp with respect, and DAs to investigate, provides his professional services here in SLO County at rates much lower than we usually pay here for government consultants. If the man who took down Oliver North and the Medellin cartels is shocked and angry about what goes on here, it's got to be pretty bad. Nevertheless, when the Board of Supervisors withdrew support from the IWMA, Supervisor Gibson twisted the malfeasance that he had covered and defended, exclaiming, "The board majority trashed the reputation of the agency and by extension former members of the board, and that is the most egregious error of governance I have ever seen." I have a final warning should Gibson remain in power. Our county is crisscrossed by connecting underground pipes that distribute water up and down the state and within the county across rights-of-way owned by different government and private entities, some not recorded with the county clerk, many installed by one engineer, the one convicted of self-dealing. He installed the Nacimiento water line, provides studies and assessment of groundwater availability, owns water companies, designs, builds, and/or manages a majority of the subdivision, private, commercial, and government water and sewer systems in the county. He alone knows more about where water is, where it goes, and how to move it from here to there than anyone else in the county. And you can't get to the big picture because his is a private company not subject to public records requests. When the sewer district wanted its information returned, and you can ask Julie Tacker about that one, they had to pay him $15,000 because he kept the government records off-site at his own facilities. If ownership is defined as control of a resource, I think you could say that he owns the water in this county. Bruce Gibson is an oil man and a geologist. He knows about pipes underground and how to move fluids underground. He's supported by the unions that also know about pipe fitting and have deep pockets. And there's another underground issue, water banking. There's not enough time tonight to talk about that, but I can recommend 4 fascinating sources if you wish to understand how our water is probably already being stolen. On Netflix, by National Geographic Films, Water and Power, A California Heist, includes SLO County and our next door neighbor, Kern County. The novel, The Dreamt Land by Mark Eriks. The short and extremely funny John Oliver's Last Week Tonight, Ghost Districts on YouTube, and Chapter 7 in The Happiest Corruption, Who Owns the Water. And I'll put, I can give you links to those if you want to email me or give me your email address. And there's a lot more that I can talk to you about. Be happy to do that at some other time. Be aware, be very aware.
Thank you, Debbie. That was awesome. Our next speaker was to be Julie Tisano. I want to share that she has a printing company and she was printing up the flyers for this event. And she was like, wow, I have a story. And I called her up and I said, well, do you want to speak? And she goes, yeah. So I think it's important to hear how this kind of corruption can hit a business or a personal person. Karen shared some of her stories, everybody's shared, but this is in particularly terrible about business. And since Julie cannot be here tonight, she had a family emergency, her husband is here, Steve Schumann. Steve is going to share the story that Julie was going to share.
Good evening. Great to be here. I was amazed at all the like-minded people. Seem to be more and more of us getting through this county and state and country alive. I'm Steve Schumann. I am Julie Tisano's husband. And I lived through this story I'm about to tell as the husband. Julie runs a print company in Grover Beach, and she also served on a board of a nonprofit, a popular nonprofit, out of San Luis Obispo. I'll leave the name of the nonprofit out because they are insignificant, really. We did mailings for them for many, many years, and Julie is a mailing expert, a data expert. Our company's name is Slow Code Data, and it's because Julie is a data expert. She knows how to sort it, she knows how to target it. She's really good at it. And as a result, she's well respected throughout the county for her work. When Jerry Lenthal, the great Jerry Lenthal, was running for re-election, he had an opponent, and the opponent was Adam Hill. And Adam Hill, in his resume, cited his work, his successful and outstanding work for this popular nonprofit as a booster, as a credential for him to become supervisor. Julie, of course, had sat on the same board at the same time he was on it and had quite a different perspective on his leadership. He had worked himself, he'd bullied himself to the chairman of this board. And as chairman, he made many decisions without the board knowing about them or even approving them. One of them was a manager of the nonprofit that he just hired out of Iowa, cold, without any board vetting or anything like that. And after 6 months, as she's shown total ineptness in her position, she was let go with a huge, at that time, parachute of over $60,000 to leave. That was all Adam Hill's decision, the parachute, the hiring, everything. So Julie's thing was, how can he say that he's this great administrator or board chairman of this nonprofit when he did not do it very nicely, and it shouldn't be a part of his campaign? And in getting that message out, which she did, there came a backlash from Adam Hill and his people. And the backlash really was to the new director of the popular nonprofit. He told him, if you do business with Sloco Data, we will cut your county funding to nothing. And the director agreed to that. And so we didn't do any more mailings or work for this popular nonprofit. We tried to get this message out over and over again, but as Karen put out, the Sloco, or the San Luis Obispo County paper does not report on those things, those negative things about people they like. And so it was never brought to bear. I do think that in the last campaign that Adam Hill had before his suicide, he probably finally that message got through that he is not the manager that he should so proudly boast he is. And I think that election, without the ballot harvesting, would have been a defeat for him. Anyway, that's my story. It's a quick one. That's my wife's story, a quick one. Karen Velie has much more deeper backlash from Adam Hill than we did, and we were just losing business from one client. But it's just an example of showing what corruption does in this county. And to read Debbie's book about corruption in Kansas City and Fresno, and the local, is again this pervasion of people that get into power think they have the power over them. And my question to myself was, what does a supervisor supervise? A county supervisor supervises the county government. Doesn't supervise its citizens. The citizens elect this person to do their work to keep the county government in line, not the other way around. So when you see people like the county manager or the public health director dictating policy past the board, it should not be that way. The board supervisors supervise them, and that should be that should be the deal. This corruption, and Debbie knows this as well as Karen, is so prevalent that it works from the state down. In the last, what I call the Rona, the pandemic, the state gave money to the counties, but there were provisions that the county had to apply. They had to basically back up whatever the state wanted in terms of mandates, or they wouldn't get their money. It's the same deal. It's the same idea. Let's get a supervisor in there like Dr. Jones who will supervise the county government, not the other way around.
Okay. Thank you very much, Steve, for stepping in for Julie. Now I'm going to tell you the rest of the story that Julie told me on the phone. Because they lost that contract, it cost them about $100,000 a year in business. And at this point, it's over $500,000 that they've lost because of that. And I think it's pretty terrible. So, let's move on to our next speaker, James Mulnar. His family goes back 5 generations of living and working on the Central Coast of California. I brought the wrong paper. Okay, never mind. 5 generations, and his family from Switzerland homesteaded in the 1870s in Cayucas. So he's been around for quite a while. And he had a restaurant for 20 years, family business, and he's been in real estate in Cayucas for over 25 years. And he is a broker and has his own James Mulnar Realty. He is right in the neighborhood of Bruce Gibson, and he's seen what he's done firsthand. So James Mulnar.
Just right here. How's everyone doing tonight? First off, I got to say that a great loss for the county not to have Mr. Lenthal. Any guy that barbecues like that needs to be our supervisor. Number 2, I'm on the tag team on Karen Velie's statement about the lot line dispute in Cayucas, which I'm well aware of. And it so happens I'm a lifelong friend of the neighbor. You would have thought that a supervisor would have the knowledge to have a surveyor come out and maybe shoot that line in before he poured a concrete slab, right? Well, this has been going on for years, and my best friend's dying of cancer. Some people say that stress can cause your body to do weird things. Anyhow, that's Mr. Gibson. In 2007, the supervisors with Gibson and Company passed a new view shed ordinance. If any of you don't know what that is, it just meant basically they were going to tell all the ranchers and farmers and all the property owners they just don't want them building on a hill. You know, a lot of hills around here, so I was kind of surprised at that. So without going through all the proper channels, he drafted this ordinance to tag team on one that was proposed for the North Coast and Hearst Castle to preserve the views of Hearst Castle. All of a sudden, it ended up extended up Old Creek Road, and the property in question, the most affected, was some good friends of mine. When they went to vote on this ordinance, Mr. Gibson was recused due to a conflict of interest. However, he voted anyway. At the time, they already had many limitations on hilltop construction, low profile screening. It had to meet a lot of prior approvals from a lot of people, including the neighbors, that it wasn't going to be intrusive to the views of the people. So this ordinance was appealed by many people, including a grassroots group named Popper, Protect Our Property Rights, that my brother, myself, and friends of ours, members of the Cattlemen's Association, the Farm Bureau, and other advisory councils in Cayucas, North County Watch, CoLab, and many locals were against it. He placed this on the consent calendar, which, by the way, does not allow any public comment. The Board of Supervisors tried desperately to shake off the opposers of this ordinance. Closing this to public comment was a direct violation of the Brown Act, which was challenged by a lawyer, and a complaint was filed with the Fair Political Practice Commission, and it fell on deaf ears. Eventually, we had to get money put together to get a judge to overturn the ordinance, which really made no difference because the board still basically felt like the rule was still in effect. And by the way, this friend of mine never did get his house built. The main family has this beautiful 90 acres overlooking Whale Rock Reservoir in Cayucas. And it's very interesting that Mr. Gibson just so happened on the parcel right next to him. It was no secret to any of us that were observing this whole thing at basically 29 and 10, that it was a self-serving duty of his. Getting on to the next thing that I just read the other night, doing a little Googling, Mr. Gibson also stated in a separate note that he, quote, will attack anyone that questions the 2020 elections. I feel Mr. Gibson has failed greatly at preserving our water, which is our greatest resource in our county. And I feel that after going through what we went through, I really found that he's not a real good listener to public. He's a good listener of what he wants to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, James. Julie Tacker is a 51-year resident of Los Osos. She served on the Los Osos Community Services District Board of Directors from 2004 to 2008 during the height of the sewer war. Since her elected service, she has continued to participate in local government. Los Osos is just one of many communities she has kept her eye on. She is credited with catching general managers embezzling, lying, and stealing through incompetence. Julie has scoured public records that have led her to identifying grant fraud and conflict of interest. She is an armchair expert in the Brown Act and has succeeded in forcing agencies to be more transparent. Please welcome Julie Tacker.
Good evening, and I want to thank the speakers before me. Can you all clap with me for that? Thank you, wonderful. And I'm not a public speaker. I am an expert in microphones. I'm a singer on the side. And I noticed something, and you'll all notice this, and it won't leave your mind again. Right here. There's a heart on this sign. The current seated supervisor either has a cold heart or no heart at all. While I've lived in Los Osos for 51 years, the last 16 have been in San Gibson Obispo County. Frankly, I'm over it. I'm sure you are too. I've been a participant in District 2 government, primarily, but I've found my way to the South County and the North County and the Inland County. I'm watching all the time, and I can spot things that don't look right, and I can smell things that stink. District 2 or Gibson Country. The current District 2, now those lines have moved, so my experience, of course, is in the former District 2. It's the people who pay for their government's missteps. While Gibson's glossy campaign material says he finally solved the decades-long sewer drama in Los Osos, that drama wasn't about sewage, it was about water. Seawater intrusion, to be precise. And still today, after $200 million of sewer construction was complete, seawater intrusion is still occurring. And there's a moratorium on building new homes, ADUs, and almost any remodel. Los Osos' issues are far from solved, thanks to Gibson. When San Gibson Obispo took over the sewer from the Los Osos CSD, I was on the board at the time, it was Gibson, along with Pavo Ogren, you won't forget that name, who devised a plan to bifurcate the sewer from water. This put new development on a back burner. The longer time passes, the more expensive development will get. We can kiss affordable housing goodbye. Once operational, the rates to operate and maintain the Los Osos sewer were raised to include a $10 million legal settlement with one of the contractors. San Gibson Obispo County handed down rate increases during the height of the pandemic, when people couldn't go door to door and gather protests for what Gibson called a 5-year recovery strategy on a 4-year-old system. The rates increased some 52% for residents and hit commercial properties and businesses even harder. It now costs $7,000 an acre foot to treat sewage in Los Osos. That's a hell of a lot of money. And who pays? The people. In Gibson Country, Bruce facilitated a consolidated permit truncating the public process for Morro Bay to build its sewer, an oversized 8 million gallon treatment plant for just 10,000 people, when they're only generating 1.5 million gallons a day. This oversized, overbuilt, over budget project is now over $160 million. The people pay. In Gibson Country, Cambria received an emergency permit for an experimental water treatment facility. 8 years later, Cambria has not received 1 drop of water from that facility. And it's been unsuccessful in getting a permanent permit for its use. To date, over $23 million has been spent for nothing. The people pay. In Gibson Country, San Simeon was given a $1 million grant to build a water treatment facility without a public permitting process. And because the public, including surrounding property owners, weren't notified, the plant was built on the neighboring property, the Hearst Conservation Easement. That misstep cost San Simeon, a severely disadvantaged community of less than 500 people, another $1 million in grants for a much-needed water tank project and $100,000 in legal bills, and it's still not resolved. Further, Gibson stood before the Coastal Commission and advocated for a regional approach for Cambria and San Simeon's wastewater. They wanted to make a plant that they could both use. He's done nothing. Not one thing. Not a meeting, not a phone call, nothing to facilitate the struggling communities so the people pay. In Cayucas, good old Cayucas. We love Cayucas, James. Love the south-facing beach. Iconic, beautiful town. But that's where the people laugh at Gibson's bad jokes. Its pier rotted away under Gibson's watch. It was the citizens that passed the hat, sold t-shirts, and held concerts to raise over $500,000 to repair it. The Cayucas Vets Hall Rehabilitation Project funding is on this coming Tuesday's agenda, Debbie. Almost $5 million is coming from grants and donations, and a budget adjustment of another $5 million is coming from the County Capital Outlay Fund. The Vets Hall was condemned after decades of deferred maintenance, and now it's picking the public's pockets for a $9 million project. Where does grant money come from? Where does grant money come from? The people. In Gibson country, he is now, far too late, addressing homelessness by providing not so safe parking on Kansas Avenue. This was long after making a huge mess on Palisades Avenue in Los Osos, when he closed a safe parking program developed for COVID reasons and removed the sanitation facilities without planning for the people who had set up camp there. The people pay. In Gibson country, the dogs, don't get me wrong, we love dogs. We love our dogs. They just got a $20+ million animal shelter because the previous animal shelter was dangerous and in disrepair. But wait now, that building's going to be refurbished for homeless services. Again, the people pay. In Gibson country, we hear rhetoric about affordable housing. There's actually very little that an elected official can do to make housing affordable. The cost to construct, labor, lumber, steel, land, and permitting are part of the cost of doing business. Look all around San Gibson Obispo County. Every community is feeling hits for trash rate increases, water rate increases, and sewer rate increases that the people pay. What the Better Bruce can do is hold down the lid on the cost of services, making living in a house in San Luis Obispo County more affordable. I'd like to see a new District 2 supervisor, a doctor, a real doctor that's taken a Hippocratic oath, not a doctor who's a hypocrite.
That was awesome. Thank you. We're just about to wrap things up. I want to thank everyone who has helped, who has donated their time and or barbecues or anything else to make this evening successful. But I don't want to end this meeting without having someone else who is very outspoken and known on the radio for many times making comments, especially on Dave Congleton. It gets him in hot water. But Eric Gorham, who is also on Dr. Bruce's campaign, is going to say a few words.
So real quick, I want to tack on to something that Julie had to say. And if I could get a raise of hands, if you live in the 5th District, if Debbie Arnold is your supervisor, can you raise your hand real quick? So when it comes to that sewer project, who do you think paid to bail them out? The 5th District. You've already paid for Bruce Gibson's mistakes. Just so you're aware, when on election day, we bailed out, I'm in the 5th District along with you, we bailed out those lawsuits. It came out of our money. It came out of Debbie's money, who represents us. So don't forget what this man has already done to us. And don't think he won't do it again. This is a man that has a progressive agenda, and that's what he lives by. He's not for the people, he's for his agenda. You know, you look at the WEH, the World Economic, or WEF, the World Economic Forum, he signed on to that. This is the man that's running, and that's what he believes in. Before he believes in you, he believes in the New World Order. So don't forget it. And don't forget to tell your neighbors, because that's what this is about. If we don't get out the vote, we don't win, period. This is about who can get the vote out. We need to get the vote out for this man, period. We've had a lot of things happen in the last few months with we had 3 people running. There was a lot of contention. Right now, we need to come together as a team, as a community, and we need to win. And it doesn't matter where you're from. If you're from South County, if you're from North County, District 5, District 1, it doesn't matter. Because the balance of power changes with this election if we lose. And it won't come back easy. And it also laments if Bruce Gibson can win. He is the most powerful man in this county. Don't forget it. If we cannot beat him, we fall and we don't get it back. Not easily, anyway. So again, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell anybody that'll listen that this is the most important election in this county, period. Now, real quick, about a year ago, I got approached by this woman over here, videotaping, Laura Mordaunt, and asked me if I wanted to chair a committee for District 2, which I thought was a little weird because I'm in District 5 and the new District 1. But I said, sure enough, I'll do that. And we talked to every candidate. We looked at everybody, we interviewed every candidate, and oddly enough, I never looked at Bruce. Bruce and I sat on tag. I was the secretary, he was the chair. And he called me one day, out of the blue. I tracked down a lot of people. Do you want to be supervisor? Nobody wanted to do it, especially the people my age, because you're in your money making, you're in the prime of your career. Why do you want to give that up to make $90,000? It's not even that. But Bruce calls me one day and he goes, Eric, what do you think if I ran for supervisor? And this is a very quiet, humble man. And I had never thought about it. And I said, let me think about it for a day or two. And over the course of those days, I had dealt with Bruce for a few years on tag. And what I saw was a quiet man, but I saw a man that led. I saw a man that listened. I saw a man that was humble. I saw a man that did his homework and wasn't afraid to ask his constituents what they wanted. And then act on it. Bruce and I, in the same boat, have taken what we don't, we've had constituents come to us and say, this is what we believe in, overwhelmingly, and this man will change his mind. Because it's what the people want, not what he wants. And, over those few days, I thought about those things. And, I can't say I didn't string them along a little bit because I had to listen to everybody that was running to see who we wanted to back. And over and over again, I kept going to Bruce. I just said, this is the man. This is the man that can lead us. You've heard a lot of stories tonight. And there's so many more stories to the corruption in this county. And one thing I thought of before I said yes to Bruce, I will back you 100%, was I am tired of hearing about how this county is the most corrupt county in California. And none of us should abide by that. We need to take it back. We need leaders like Bruce. We need leaders like Debbie. We lost Lynn, unfortunately, and it looks like John won't be coming back. We have to replace them with men like this, with women like Debbie. And the only way we're going to do that, unfortunately, I'm going to make a plea to you right now. There's cards in the back of that room. Bruce Gibson is killing us money-wise. We are not going to catch up to him. We can win. We will win. But it's with your support, your neighbor's support, your friends' support. We, unfortunately, need your money. And I hear you, this is a time of year where people are asking and they're asking. This is the most important election. Don't ever forget it. I don't care where you're at in this county. We need your support, period, or we fall. Quite honestly, there's not enough people in this room tonight because I need to be speaking a lot more. That's why I need you. That's why Bruce needs you to bring your friends out, support this candidacy, period. Because right now, Bruce is beating us about two-thirds to one. He's out funding us 2/3 to 1. Why did Lynn fall? Not because she's not a great supervisor, not because she didn't fight, because she couldn't come up with $1 million. She could come up with about 300,000. That's what we're fighting. I think if we can come up with half the money, we'll win. With your support, with you guys going out there helping this candidacy from across the county. And I already see that. But unfortunately, again, I'm going to make the plea. We need your money. We need your friends' money. We need to win this election, period. So, I'd like you to stand up, Bruce. I'd like you to look at the man that can change this county.